back to the Full Fledged Podcast. I'm your host, Justin Mulvaney. Today is a different episode. I do not have my co-host with me, as you can see, so I will be doing a monologue solo podcast this episode. With that, it'll be a shorter episode. However, stay tuned for another episode or two that will be later or released later this week with co-hosts or potential guests. I guess we'll see. All that being said, I'll go ahead and get into the topics for today. I went duck hunting once since our last episode, so I'll talk briefly on that, and then we'll look at the week ahead for when I plan to hunt, what I plan to hunt, and how I plan to hunt. Towards the end of the episode, I'll talk briefly on some updates for hunters and anglers in the state of Tennessee with some rule change approvals that came from the commission of the TWRA. It's the Tennessee Fish and Wildlife Commission. And then I'll share my thoughts on those rule changes. It's nothing too crazy, something to do with licenses and fees, but I feel like it's something worth sharing my thoughts over. To start out, let's talk about the duck hunt I went on this weekend. It was just one day. I had to work the morning shift both days this weekend, so I was only able to get out for afternoon hunts if I was going to go. And so I only went on Saturday. My wife, Caitlin, she went with me. She's never been duck hunting before, so I convinced her to tag along, sit in the blind with me, set up decoys, what have you. We just did a short little afternoon hunt. It was a pretty decent day for duck activity. I thought, there was some overcast, a little bit of wind, mild temperatures. It wasn't too cold, it wasn't hot. By the time we got to the spot, it was about 2 in the afternoon. So it left us a little over 2 hours worth of hunting. So I went out, set up the decoys, had the waders on, and Caitlin went and got some brush to set up the blind. Tried to do as much of a blind as we could. Once I finished setting up the decoys, I went and helped her get some more sticks and stuff like that, gather materials for the blind. I brought 2 dozen decoys again, my dozen teal and the other dozen were mallard. Then I put 4 of the mallards on a jerk rig just to have some movement in the water. Then I kept them separate from each other, teal on one side, mallard on the other. Then I didn't have my spinning wing decoy. It wasn't working. About 20 minutes after the blind was built, everything was all set up. We got settled in. We were sitting, waiting for a little bit. We didn't really see any birds flying over as we were getting set up, so we weren't really sure what to expect. So about that time, as we kind of, finally settled in, had everything set up, kind of showed her how everything was working. A group of 3 mallards started kind of flying towards us. I wasn't sure really where they came from. I gave them a few calls, but I really think they were just kind of just getting off the water and they were heading somewhere new. Because by the time they actually got kind of over us, they were much higher in the air than when they had started. My calls did nothing for them. They didn't come down, they didn't turn at all. I'm not an expert caller by any means, but the few tricks I do know, they had zero impact on their behavior at all. So it was just a brief interaction. They flew from our left to right. And then, once things got settled back down after calling, we never really ended up seeing any other birds fly. So we had a pair of binoculars with us. I was kind of sitting there and was able to look out. I saw a few other groups of birds, ducks kind of sitting along the shore and a few spots that are accessible to hunt. And so, I'll keep those spots in mind for the future. Because, as long as we find a good way to access those spots, parking especially, we might have a good chance of success at some birds, with different wind variations, just having some different spots. And yesterday afternoon, we had some rainstorms coming through, potentially in the evening, or like late afternoon. So we didn't really sit around too long. We started to feel a little drizzle, as we were sitting there. So we decided to, start breaking the blind down. I went out, started gathering up the decoys. We just kind of picked it up and we headed home. So we really only had that one group of ducks. We had a group of geese fly way out in the distance, but just that one group of 3 ducks fly over. I think it might have been enough to convince Caitlin to go back out with me. It wasn't an awful day, so hopefully it's something that, I'll do a little bit more scouting and find a little bit more action for us and hopefully convince her that, duck hunting is a fun thing to do. that's kind of it for the duck or for the hunting. I've been able to do duck and deer the last couple of weeks. So like I said, since I work this weekend, I'll be able to have the afternoons off from work this week, 4 or 5 of the days. So this week I'm definitely, or this upcoming week, I'm definitely planning on getting back into deer hunting mode. So I'm gonna be kind of getting out a couple times during the week for that. My camera has gone off a few times over the last few days, especially with some deer moving. I had a few new bucks move through, and then some that I'd never seen before, and then I've also been seeing quite a few does. So with that, there's a good chance that the afternoon activity is kind of picking up. So as far as live scouting, I haven't really like actually scouted, but driving around and stuff like that in the afternoons, coming home from work, what have you. And at work, I've been seeing the deer movement picking up, mostly being in the afternoons. So, that 11 to 1 o'clock is pretty active, that I've been seeing. And then from there, kind of sprinkled in, some afternoon activities picking up. So I just hope that continues, because as of right now, I'm hoping to get out Tuesday and Thursday. The weather's kind of looking better for those days, compared to like Monday and Wednesday. Monday and Wednesday, I believe both are supposed to have rain in the forecast. And it's not that I won't hunt in the rain because I definitely have. I just have done enough of it this year that I really don't feel like going out and doing it again until next season. So Tuesday and Thursday definitely look to be more solid weather for me, with good deer movement forecasted based on my apps I've been looking at. I think I'll likely spend one day in my southern unit and the other day in that other section that Tanner and I have hunted more often between the two of us. Um, my decision on which day is which is pretty much going to depend on the wind. I do think both days are going to be the same, as far as like miles per hour and direction. It's going to be like out of the northeast both days, so it'll just kind of depend. I have spots kind of picked out for both of those. Where I'm gonna sit. You know, I haven't gotten a buck yet this year, so I'm kind of willing to take whatever I can get. I would like to get a buck, but I'm definitely open to taking a doe or a buck. I will obviously always take a buck, but I'm definitely open to taking at least a doe. Just looking to fill the freezer a little bit more, have some more meat. We haven't gone through the deer yet that I killed earlier this year, but definitely want to replenish the stock, have a little bit more meat in the freezer for sure. I've picked out my spots more or less that I'm gonna sit in. I've sat in these areas enough that I kind of know with that forecasted wind where I want to sit. Is even as far as like what specific tree I want to sit in. So um, I don't really have to do much planning for that. I kind of have it in mind where I want to go and what I want to do there. The rut is pretty much over. I don't plan on bringing my antlers to rattle. I think we're pretty much past the rut completely here. And then I haven't really seen any signs of a secondary rut occurring. People talk about around here that the secondary rut is kind of a popular thing. I just haven't seen much sign of that, so I don't think rattling's really going to do anything. At this point, it could, but I'm just not even going to bring them out there. I don't think it's going to be worth it for me. I might use a grunt tube. I typically always bring it with me anyways. So, if I see a buck kind of out in the distance that isn't already on track to coming into me, I'll probably give him a couple grunts and try to lure him in that way. But aside from that, I don't really have any new strategies or tactics that I'm gonna try for this week. Just kind of stick to my old routine of sitting it out and grunt when I feel like I want to or need to. And then since I don't work this upcoming weekend, I'll be able to have some morning hunts. Um, I'm gonna get my 2 deer hunts in this week, so I'm probably gonna get back out and duck hunt again Saturday. I don't know. I think Tanner's busy. I might try to see if any of my other buddies I know around here are wanting to go duck hunting. So, Bryant, I'm probably gonna reach out to you, buddy, if you're listening. So, I'll shoot a few texts out and see if any of my my new buddies around here want to go out and duck hunt. But I'll take some time Friday afternoon, go scout some ducks again, see where they're if they've moved, and then where would be best to set up. I've got a few places in mind. Um, but with the weather coming in tomorrow, being Monday and Wednesday with rain and such, I don't know what that's going to do for birds. I don't know what the weather's been doing up north of us either. So that obviously has an impact on if we get new birds pushing in, or birds that are here, if we get those pushed out. So I'll definitely have to scout on Friday to see kind of what the plan of action is going to be. Um, I'll definitely know come Friday because Monday and Wednesday storms moving in and out. That shouldn't be, or it should give me enough time to kind of get a feel for what is more likely to happen if we've got new birds pushed through, or what the case is, or if they've all moved out and it's just going to be a bad week to hunt. I guess we'll find out come Friday. And then with that, kind of what my plan for hunting the ducks is. Aside from location, I haven't really picked out a location. I'm probably going to stick with my 2 dozen decoys that I have. Then I believe I fixed my Mojo spinning wing decoy. So that's really going to be the only addition to the spread, like new addition to the spread. And then, I'll plan to get in extra early wherever I decide to go, and really build up a blind better, just so I can make sure we can have as good a hide as we can. I feel like that's had the biggest impact on our success, and it's been in a negative manner. We haven't had a ton of success, and like I've said the last couple episodes, I think it has a pretty good deal to do with the hide, the blind that we've had. So get in there extra early just to one get a spot, beat the guys with boats to spots that maybe are better, and then also two to build a much better blind so that we can kind of get ourselves hidden in a little bit better. But yeah, I think that pretty much wraps up, what I want to do in the field this week. Let me know in the comments what hunting you've been doing. Also, leave a comment if you have any suggestions or strategies I should use for hunting ducks on big water. Like, I'm used to ponds and rivers. I'm hunting lakes now around here. I'm not used to it, so lakes are new to me. I'll take any advice I can get. So if you have any suggestions on how to hunt ducks on lakes, I'll take them. Last thing I want to talk about for today's episode, like I had said, was those rule changes that got brought up for the state of Tennessee. So the Tennessee Fishing and Wildlife Commission voted on some rule changes at the end of last week. So, in my opinion, the most notable changes, there were a few of them. The most notable changes that were approved were the increase in fees for licenses, permits, and fees for hunting and fishing, as well as increase in boat registration fees. So boat registration fees went up 22%. Hunting and fishing license prices went up by 28%. And then Tennessee has a sportsman's license, where residents can buy one license that kind of covers everything for hunting and fishing, what have you. And then some other permits that would be needed they also fall under that same license. Um, and then separately, there are more specific permits that aren't included that you do have to buy separately. But this one sportsman's license exists. But the sportsman's license and the lifetime license, those fees were also increased by 12%. So, you got the 22%, the 28%, and the 12% increases in licenses and fees, what have you. These changes go into effect the summer of 2025. I believe it's July 1st, 2025. So this will directly increase or impact the um, hunting and fishing licenses and fees, and permit fees for this upcoming hunting and fishing season. If you know our licenses and fees, they last for a year. So if you bought your license for like if you're only a hunter and you buy them May 1st or whatever, June 1st, we'll say, your prices are I believe they're not going to get changed until July 1st. So you may kind of luck out that you'll get one more round of not having um, those increased fees. but then the next year they are going to be increased. So then one other change that they had brought up was the simplifying of the license structure. In the past, the license structure and the way it was written in the book was based on what weapon was used, gun, muzzleloader, archery, those types of things. Now it's going to be based on the species that you hunt, so it's going to specify exactly, the seasons based on what species, because it was confusing to some people what you could use and when and for what species, and what licenses you needed, what permits, things like that. So that's all just that change is all in hopes of simplifying the regulations for the general public. I've definitely noticed on Facebook groups a lot of confusion when it comes to the rules and regulations. And I could admit, even for myself, and even kind of Tanner when we first moved here, some of the rules and regulations weren't so black and white, and kind of confused us on certain things. But once you kind of read into it a lot more, you really understood it. So it just takes a little bit more or it used to take a lot more reading to really understand the rules and regulations. These changes are pretty much just to try and simplify for everybody what the rules and regulations are supposed to be. Um, it'll hopefully make everybody better for it. It also just comes down to people actually reading the book to fully understand what the book is saying and what you can and can't do. But the article that was released, where I'm getting all this information, it provides some insight that 70% of the TWRA budget comes from license sales and some grants that they receive that are based on the number of hunters and anglers in the state. Um, and the last broad license fee increase was all the way back in 2015. So, by the time this change comes into effect, it will be 10 years since the last time they actually had like a broad increase the way that they're doing it right now. Um, The article also states that the agency is in a significant operational deficit. So the agency just doesn't have enough money to operate, especially over the last couple of years, or so they say. Um, you know, for my thoughts on these rule changes, in my opinion, there's really two main reasons for for these increases. I think, the one change with the rule book, that's just to simplify things. I think it'll help. I don't think it would hurt to have it that way, to be written more clear for people to understand better. And then, when it comes to license and fee increase, um, I believe the more obvious reason that I think everybody could kind of get along with, and it's kind of more of a cop out in my opinion. It's just related to inflation, and everything costs more to operate in society as a whole, and so that doesn't discriminate when it comes to hunting and fishing, and so and for the agency to be able to fund all the things that they need to fund, where when it comes to salary and all their daily operations, they need fuel and other resources as well, not just the money to just exist. There's some things that they do that also require money that they have to spend on as well. So, as with everything, everything costs money to operate, and so consumers need to pay more to continue that operation for a business. And in this case, the same applies for the agency of the TWRA. And the other factor that I think of when I look at these approvals, it may be due to the fact that there are less hunters and anglers, and also less hunters and anglers that actually purchase licenses and permits. The cost of living is high enough right now. It would make people possibly not purchase the proper licenses and permits in the future to legally hunt and fish and fish, I think. With that being said, I believe increases of 22%, 28%, 12% respectively, they're drastically too extreme. I believe the article was trying to justify these numbers by clarifying that the last increase was all the way back in 2015. Um, and I think they were kind of pointing at that these changes were bound to happen. And I would even go as far to say that like it was kind of insinuating that the licenses, permits, and fees were all priced too low in recent years, and a significant increase was like inevitable sooner or later. So, um, you know, with the minimal research I've done on my end, I found that pretty much the average cost of living raise that a person gets from their employer is typically like 1 to 3%. And so with those pay increases for the cost of living on top of every of inflation and everything, um, you know, I think it's possible that we could see people not being able to afford certain hobbies or parts of life that they've, enjoyed in the past. So I think we could see a couple of possible changes out of this. One thing I could see happening is just less hunters and anglers will purchase licenses and permits, which could potentially increase the number of poachers and illegal hunting and fishing that happens, which, the agency already doesn't have enough money, and so with that, you're not having enough money to have enough officers to fight the poaching that could potentially be happening out of all these changes. And so I think that's probably the bigger thing that I could see happening in that scenario where, people will still hunt and fish, but they may be doing it more illegally, where they don't have the proper licenses and permits. Then, the other thing I could see happening, I kind of brought it up, alluded to it there before, just these changes eliminating hunters and anglers entirely. So, just people that can't afford it, they just get out of it, and, they don't have it in their heart or will to just say, well, I can't afford the licenses or permits this year, so I just can't afford to hunt or fish at all. And then also I'm not going to risk getting in trouble by poaching or doing it illegally, so I'm just not going to do it at all. And it could get people to come out of hunting and fishing, which I think is like really, really bad. You're taking something that's such a historic pastime for um, society, not just America, but like people around the world. You're taking that risk of losing people and taking that away from them. So, um, I do understand that the TWRA is probably underfunded pretty significantly to begin with, and they claim to have this operational deficit. They need funding somehow. Um, I don't have like an immediate proposal on how to overcome this deficit or like decrease the deficit that they're in. But I just think that the increase in the fees and licenses and permits, the cost for those things is just too extreme on this upfront. I would have probably hoped to have seen those increases be more similar to the cost of living increases that we see kind of with our paychecks and where we're employed from. I would definitely be more understanding of a cost increase if it was more like correlated to the cost of living increase, and if it was a little bit more. So, if they went to like a 5 to 7% increase instead of, in the 20 percentile. Um, it'll be interesting to see what impact these changes have in the future. I hope I'm wrong, that I hope we don't see people get out of hunting and fishing. I hope we don't see people poaching or illegally hunting and fishing more often because of these changes. But, I guess we'll only have to wait and see at this point. Yeah, that's really all I have to say on that, and that's really all I have to say for this episode. Let me know what you guys think of this format. Leave some comments below, like and subscribe. That'll show me that you guys like this type of podcast. You like what I'm talking about, or like what we're talking about when I have my co-hosts on, Brooks and or Tanner. And then, maybe in the future I can do more things like this, or just let me know what you guys want us to talk about. It'll just help us produce content that you guys like to listen to. So I definitely appreciate you guys listening. And I'll catch you guys on the next one. See ya.